Hello, this is Brian Funk, and thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'm very excited to announce that my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, is now available in paperback form, a real book that you can hold and touch and turn to any page you like in a second. And it's a pretty big book, 629 pages of activities, exercises, and wisdom I've learned over the years. It's available on Amazon.com. The 5-Minute Music Producer is 365 music-making activities that will help with your songwriting and music production. It'll help you fight writer's block, make more music, write better lyrics, develop solid workflows, learn techniques for generating ideas, and finish more music. It's like having your very own music production personal trainer giving you ideas and challenges each day. And the best part is the challenges are quick and easy, and they only take a few minutes. So even if you don't have a lot of time, you can spend 5 minutes and advance your music production skills. There's no better time to improve your music than now. Imagine where you'll be after a year of these activities. The 5-Minute Music Producer has hit the #1 new release in the music songwriting and music recording and sound categories on Amazon. So check out the 5-Minute Music Producer, 365 music-making activities. It's available on Amazon.com, or you can go to brianfunk.com/book. Hello and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Chloe Echo. Chloe is here to talk about some new music she's got that's come out. She's recently just changed her artist name to Chloe Echo. I got the pleasure to spend some time with her back in August at the Monterey Songwriting Retreat that I've spoken about a few times on the show now. But Chloe was in my group, so we really got to know each other a little bit musically, and we had a great time. She's an amazing artist, great singer, songwriter. She's teaching for Berklee Online now. Congratulations on that. And it's great to have you here, Chloe. Nice to see you again.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's so good to get to join you and talk some shop. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah. How have you been lately the last few months?
I've been good. It's been super busy since I saw you in August. I feel like, especially with the fall happening, everything kind of picks back up. I feel like summer was kind of more chill, and then everything gets super busy again. I have just been making a lot of music and teaching and chugging along. It's been good.
Yeah, you've got the new album out, the new release called The Moment, which is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
I love it. It's got like a lot of great like alternative rock to it, but also some more modern like electronic production. Really cool production too.
Thank you.
The songs
Thanks
are great.
So much.
It sounds really, really nice, smooth and slick, but not overly polished. It still has some like, life to it. It's a great balance. I'm really enjoying it. I think you did an awesome job with it.
Thank you so much. Well, it was so much fun to make each of those songs, and they're all mainly like co-produced, and it was really fun to get to co-produce and produce my stuff for the first time. These 5 songs that are on there. There's one of them that was produced by a really great collaborator of mine. His name's Jacob McCaslin. He produced the song. It's the 3rd song on the EP, called Out of Sight, Out of Mind, but it's abbreviated in the title name. And then that was a song that's pretty old. And then all the rest of them were co-produced by myself and either Jacob, or I have also a track on there, Break Your Heart, that had additional production by Noah Lubert and Stefan Lo-Giacomo. So some co-production. I love working with other people, and I'm proud of it. So thank you.
Yeah, that's cool that it has that about it. It's nice to get other insights into your music because other people see it from different angles that it's just impossible for us to get, working
Totally.
on our own.
Yeah, I think co-producing is one of those things that like you want to get your vision across as the artist, but at the same time, like you can get into a feedback loop really easily if you're just producing it all by yourself. And having trusted collaborators has allowed me to explore things that I never could really do on my own. And it's also encouraged me to get better as a producer. And yeah, I love it. I love co-producing.
Mm. And you just said before we started recording that these songs come from like a period of time in the past, so they're not all completely new.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like a collection of what you've done, because you're kind of taking this new direction now with all of your work.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had like a very winding road of a journey as an artist over the last few years. Yeah. So this is my third artist name, and third time's the charm, right? That's what they say. Yeah. So I started releasing music in like 2016 using the name Chloe Jane, and that is my actual first and middle name. And so that's where I put out an EP of kind of like more folk sounding, folk rock stuff. I come from playing acoustic guitar and writing songs that way. Before I ever started producing or using Ableton, I was just writing on guitar. And so those first songs are really, it's really clear that that's where they come from. And I put out an EP as Chloe Jane, and then I ran into some issues with trademark and problems with another person called Chloe Jane. Me kind of being young, not really knowing what to do about that. I was like, well, can I tell them that I use the name first and but I found out that her family was a very powerful music industry family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was like, okay, well,
yeah,
we can just start something fresh and like eliminate that problem of having to compete with somebody else using the same name. I was just kind of like, okay, I want to start something else. So when I graduated from college, I decided to change my name to Nia Jane, which is my great grandma's name. Her name is Nia, and then my grandma's name is Jane, and my middle name is Jane. So it was a family name. It was really meaningful to me to get to use the name Nia. And it worked really well for a few years. And I put out an album and a bunch of singles as Nia Jane and some music videos, and like was really active gigging and things like that. I was living in Boston for the majority of the time that I was using that name. And then I kind of just, during COVID, anytime you start a sentence with during COVID, it's going to be like some like big life change. But
well, we all had like that time to kind of look inward.
Yeah, totally. So that for sure happened for me. And I think it like kind of coincided with just a natural life transition for me. I was like 25, and I don't know. I think that that's just a time of life where you feel like you're going from the lifestyle of being in college and kind of your early 20s living on your own, not necessarily like going to school anymore, beginning your like journey as a working person and figuring out what you're going to do in that realm of life. So I think that transition, sorry, I just hit my microphone. That transition for me was kind of like, it was kind of challenging. So I was doing a lot of soul searching on what do I want to do with my music? Why am I doing this? Why do I want to keep doing this? Because it's not always the easiest road to be an artist, but it doesn't really feel like a choice that much either. It's kind of like when you want to do it and you're called to it, you kind of just do it. You don't really, I don't know, for me at least, it's never really felt like, oh, maybe I'm an artist, maybe I should try it. It's more just kind of always been something that I wanted, that I loved, that felt like a part of who I am. So I was asking myself, why do I care so much about this? Why do I love it? Why do I want to do it? Even though it means that you face kind of an uncertain future. There's no real road laid out in front of you of, okay, do this, 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 and then you'll be successful. It's very much just try and keep going and see what happens and just kind of pivot as you go. And yeah, I think that as a lot of artists, I kind of realized that a lot of the reason why I was putting music out was because I wanted to share and I wanted to connect with others, but there was also a part of me that felt really strongly like I wanted to prove to everyone who doubted me that I could make it. And that to me stopped being motivating past a certain point. And I kind of felt like this isn't fun for me right now anymore, because I think I cared a lot too much about the numbers and if it was going to be successful, and comparing myself to my peers, other people who were doing similar things to me, and thinking, why is theirs so much more successful than mine?
Yeah,
right? Successful in air quotes, because
whatever that definition is.
Yeah, you kind of have to decide on your own what success means. So I kind of went through this whole ego death of like, okay, why am I even doing this? This isn't fun for me right now. I was focusing way too much on like the marketing and how do I run ads, and learning a lot about just social media marketing. And I got pretty burnt out and decided to take a break from releasing music. And this was like 2000, like in 2020 through like 2022, really. So I had a few songs that were already done at that point that I put out during those few years that I really kind of took a pause on worrying about promo and that kind of thing. And it was a very healing time of just making music for fun and not really caring what it was going to be or what was going to happen. And I kept telling myself, like, don't try to figure out what this is for. Don't try to figure out if it's going to be catchy enough or if people are going to like it. Don't worry about that. Just make the music and everything else will kind of reveal itself when you have some music. So I really dove into producing, making new songs, just making random stuff, not even caring if it was good or bad, not even really thinking about that, just making things because I wanted to get back in touch with my actual why, which is that's how I make sense of the world, by making art and making music. And that's how I express my feelings. That's how I aim to connect with other people. So I really dove into just making music for music's sake for a few years. And long story, coming to the present, basically I decided, okay, I want to go by my actual name again. I want people to be able to call me Chloe. If I'm up on stage, I want to be able to say, hi, I'm Chloe, and that's my name. It seems like a simple thing, but it was something that I had really missed when I was going by Nia Jane. I really wanted to just introduce myself as Chloe. And I think that after that kind of long period of not really being concerned with presentation, putting things out, getting numbers, whatever, kind of just letting that fall away for a while, I kind of found myself feeling like it would be a really good time for just a fresh start, because I was pretty low-key on the internet. So it felt like good timing to start something new. And so that's what I'm doing. So I changed everything over and I released an EP under Chloe Echo called Past Life. And that EP is made up of 5 songs that I released as Nia Jane. It's 4 of the most recent singles and then 1 song from my album that came out in 2019. So those 5 songs are songs that were already released. But I felt like because I had already really poured so much of myself into these songs that I really cared about, I wanted to be able to take them with me when I start this new chapter of my artistic journey. And I also, didn't want to abandon those songs. They meant a lot to me. So I kind of felt like, well, let's just take a few and put them out and establish this new project. And then hopefully that can set the groundwork for the new music that I've made over the last couple of years.
That's a great title for your record too, Past Life. And it's a
Thank
cool
you.
first, release, Past Life. Kind of almost feels like something you would do after you had a bunch of things going, but it shows that you did have a bunch of things going.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting what you said too, how, you get caught up in like the numbers and what's all these different measurements of what success is.
Yeah.
And they creep on you, right? Like first it's like, okay, well, how many plays did I get? Oh, cool. And then you start looking at another one and another one. And next thing you know, you're checking like every day and you're looking all the time. And the time where you would be making your art is figuring that stuff out. How do I raise the numbers instead of raising the art and making that stuff better?
Yeah.
And I think what you said too about like comparing yourself to others, I mean, everybody does that. But what I've started to realize myself is I'm not like playing on a level playing field, I guess is what I'm trying to say, where I might say, well, they sing better than me and they write a better melody. And it's always this changing thing where I'm never getting like a fair shake in these comparisons because you're taking the best aspects of everyone else that you see around you.
Yeah.
And you just can't ever live up to that. And the thing is, it's not a competition anyway. It's not what the point of it all is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I had to step away from it for a while in order to really kind of see that for real and to be able to find joy in just making music and see that made my life feel really fulfilling and really exciting. And I was really happy, and it had nothing to do at all with what people said about it online, if I got a lot of plays, whatever. Like, it was not a competition. It was just, I want to make something cool. And now I'm enjoying my life because I'm spending a lot of my time making cool things that I like. So it was really important to kind of just let that all go for a while, like a couple years, legit. Like I just didn't want to participate. And I think that was really healing and set me up to hopefully not fall into those same traps of social comparison again. You're right. You do compare yourself. You compare the things that you're most insecure about to the things that you admire in other people. And other people are doing that to you. It's just you're never gonna actually be able to win if that's the game that you're playing, because everybody will see different things. You might feel really insecure about one thing, but that somebody else is really good at, but then that person feels insecure about something that you're really good at. And it's just like, you can't compare.
Right. Yeah, we're all like that. It's like, if you ever talk to these people, they would say the same thing about you. They'd be like, oh, yeah, I always looked at what you're doing, and it makes me feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's part of the thing we do, I guess, just those vulnerabilities. And
yeah, it really is. And I think that if we can understand that that's kind of fake, and that social media, the way that you like compare yourself to other people on social media, and especially comparing numbers, that is not real. Like, the numbers are not real. It's not real life. And I think that eventually, you know, it does make a difference in terms of what you do for your job. At some point, the numbers do kind of, quote, matter a little bit, but honestly, not really that much. Like, you could see somebody who you think has a ton of success. Oh, their numbers are so high. And then they're looking at the person who has more than them saying the same thing.
Yeah,
and then you even have
enough.
Yeah, it's never done. And then you see even big artists like paying for botted streams because they think that the bigger artist, they want to be the bigger artist, you know, like even at the top of the industry, that's happening. People are getting jealous of each other. So I just kind of feel like if you can eliminate that comparison game with the numbers, you'll be more fulfilled, because it really, I don't know if it'll ever be enough.
Yeah, it's a moving target. It's constantly on the horizon. It's always out of reach.
Yeah. And how long do you spend being stoked about reaching one of the milestones? If you say, oh, I want to get X amount of plays, and then you get it, like for maybe like 5 minutes, you're like, yay, I did this. Cool.
Right.
And then instantly after that, you're like, okay, well, now I have to get this other song to the same amount of plays. But all my songs don't have that. And, oh, but I need to come up with a new, it's just, you can go down a really bad rabbit hole with that. And I think for me, the only way to stop that was by just stepping kind of away from all of it and just focusing on making music for a while. And I think it was the right choice.
It becomes one of those things where you're like the fish that doesn't know that it's in water, and you're just surrounded by this stuff, and you kind of do need to come out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had that a few times in my life for various reasons, where I've questioned it, like, what am I doing? And just trivialized it, like making these stupid sounds and these stupid songs. And it's meanwhile, like, other people are doing more important things, and you could be doing something that actually contributes. But it seems like whenever I get down those paths, it's kind of the music itself that brings me back out of it. It's always what I turn to anyway. And I had a similar thing, lockdown, you know, where, you know, I had some time to myself to do it, and it was kind of fun at first, but then, you know, the world started getting crazier and crazier. Yeah. And what I was doing felt sillier and sillier, to the point where it was like, it felt so frivolous.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it can feel like that for sure. Like, what am I doing? I'm just making little songs in my room. Like, what is this doing for the greater good? But, you know,
it can feel like nothing, but
yeah. But I don't know. I think about the times when I've had really important emotional realizations because of somebody else's song that I listened to, like my favorite songs that have really impacted me, like, have genuinely made my life better. And I think that's impactful, right? So I do think that music has an impact, even if it feels sometimes like all I'm doing is bopping around, pressing buttons. And like, I do think that it helps us connect with other people.
Yeah. I think maybe it might help other people, but if nothing else, it makes me less of a stressed out asshole.
Yeah. Know? And that's good for the greater good too.
And that has a ripple effect somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
You're nicer to others and stuff, just
Definitely.
Because you're feeling a little better.
Yeah, it's so true. I have this little sign on my wall over there that says, oh, I don't have my glasses on. I can't read it.
That's good. You have a sign so you can look at it once in a while.
It says to bring peace to the earth, strive to make your own life more peaceful. And it's a good place to start. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's where you have the most power, right?
Yeah.
You can't always and you can look at this for like streams and numbers too, and you can't control that stuff, but you can control yourself more. You can put that work into it, and that might make a difference. That it might lead examples for others. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. We don't really know what effect we have on other people, but I think if you put out positivity and good music that you're proud of and you're feeling good, you know, somebody else is probably going to like it too. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And
I
you
think
never
there's
know.
enough people in the world where there might be someone that relates to that, or at least picks up on that vibe.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many weird little things people have said in passing that they definitely wouldn't remember, that have just stuck with me and had impressions. And I'm sure we're all doing that every step of the way.
Yeah.
Little thing you say, and like somebody just holds on to it for some reason.
Yeah. That's actually a great concept for a song.
Yeah, right. That's something I like about you. You think about that a lot. And that was something we got to experience back in August when we were writing. It was, you and me and Matt, and we did a lot of, it was a really cool way to approach it. I thought that we kind of sat down and I knew Matt from class, from the Berklee class.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you, and I only really knew Matt online. I might have spoken to him on the phone once or twice, and in the Berklee Online classes. So it was really nice that we kind of just slowed down at first and just kind of talked about things and where were we in our lives, what was going on, and it allowed these bigger concepts to kind of come out rather than just we're gonna make a song all mechanically and just kind of pump something out.
Totally. I really appreciated that too. It was really great. It's hard when you get into a room with people you don't know. You don't know how that's going to go. Like, I've had it go really great. And I think that what we experienced was something that was really awesome and super synchronized. All of us kind of were able to connect with each other and get on the same page about what we wanted to do. And it was super collaborative. I never would have made that song on my own, which I love. I love that we were able to come together and create something that was really like a combo of all of our tastes and ideas, and it was really fun. So I feel like it's pretty special when you get to meet new people and work on something that you're all passionate about and you don't know them. It's really unique experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to get to know people too, because these like parts start like kind of unfolding before your eyes, and it might be in a lyric, it might be in like just a chord choice or something rhythmic even, or just a comment just about feedback, whether they liked what happened or not. And you get a sense of the kind of people we all are and how we approach these things. And you're right, it is hard to find that. There's just so much that goes into it, right? And so many different things. There's egos, there's vulnerabilities, insecurities, there's all of that. But I think what we were able to do anyway was just kind of drop all that stuff, which I think is the only way, unless you're going to just muscle your ideas onto other people. Yeah. But to just let that go, because otherwise nothing really happens, or it's a very stressful situation.
Yeah, I was really stoked that we were all able to kind of just find a place to meet in the middle. We spent one day working in Matt's condo by the beach, and like that day I think was just so special. Like the fact that we were all able to kind of do our own thing and trust each other, that I trust that what you're working on is going to be the perfect addition and it's going to have your little flavor. And then what we all did, we kind of were working on our own computers with headphones on and sitting and with the ocean air coming in. It was so like idyllic and beautiful. And then we didn't know what each other was doing. I've never worked like that before.
Yeah, me neither. That was the first for me too.
It was really cool. I really enjoyed it because it totally showed that, even though we'd only known each other, like 2 days at that point, that we were able to let go of control and trust each other to have our own like identity and put our own fingerprints on the track. And then when we put everything together and listened to it, it sounded so cool. I was like really happy with how it turned out. And yeah, that was a first for me to work like that.
Yeah, it was almost like if we were doing something remotely where one person does something, they send it off, and then you wait and you get it back. Except the only difference was all three of us were in the same room with headphones on different laptops, working on the same session that we would ultimately have to somehow combine, which you did all the hard work on that, which was great. Thank you. And
no worries.
But it was a really fun feeling and this was kind of the vibe too, just being around the other groups, the other people. And I think anytime you're with a bunch of creative people, is that there's this energy of things happening and there's work getting done. And even when you hit your low and you're kind of, this always happens to me after a certain amount of time, I feel either drained or like, I don't know what to do. And you look around and everyone's still going and you're like, okay, that's cool. It gets you more excited again.
Yeah, totally. It's motivating.
Yeah.
And when you take a break to, go get a snack or something like that, and you see other people in their creative headspace and working on things, like it's motivating in the most wholesome way, where it's like, oh, this is so fun. Look, everyone's enjoying themselves. Like I want to do that too. So I don't know. It's rare to get the chance. I mean, that was a full week where for 5 days we were all able to lay our other responsibilities at the door and just say, okay, we're here for 5 days and we're committed to making something with these people that we don't know. I think some people knew each other, but
a few.
But I didn't know a single person. Like I barely knew Matt. So it was completely out of my comfort zone. I'm so used to writing by myself. I have written most of my songs by myself. So yeah, I really only have a few songs that are co-writes that I've released under my own projects. So for me, doing co-writing is it comes less naturally to me than just writing a song by myself does. But it pushes me to go out of my comfort zone, to be vulnerable. I wonder what the hardest part about it is. And I feel like, honestly, it is like learning how to air my ideas, even if I'm not sure about them yet, to other people. Like that process is nerve-wracking. Because if I'm by myself, if I don't like my idea, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'll just get it out there anyways and then see what happens, and nobody else will ever see it if I don't like it. But if you're with other people, you have to be comfortable sharing things that are not polished and being like a raw version of yourself that's unedited and that is the true you, just letting your ideas flow and trusting that the people that you're with are gonna accept you and listen to your idea. And if it's good, awesome. And if it's not the right idea, then you can trust your collaborators to tell you that in a gentle way, hopefully, but also sometimes not in a gentle way, which happens sometimes, and that's okay too. But yeah, I think that is something that has been challenging for me.
It's a good exercise in itself, right? Like just getting comfortable in those situations, to throw yourself in these positions where you do have to put yourself out there. It's a great way you put it, where you're not even sure if you like your idea yet. You kind of need to see if it sticks yourself. And it's much better when, it's much more comfortable when you're like, I know this is a great idea.
Yes.
But in those moments when you're putting things together on the spot out of nothing, you kind of have to get to the point where you can just say things and let things go and let a stupid idea out of your mind and not be too worried about it. And there's a point, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I could feel it happen where it was like going to be okay. After we were talking for a while, I realized like, all right, this is going to be okay. Like we're going to be able to work on something here. And those are always my favorite kind of collaborations, when I'm with people where you know that they already accept you for your whatever it is you're going to contribute.
Yeah.
On any level. Like, they're just, okay, we know we want to work together. We're choosing to be with each other in this project. And then you can just kind of not worry and not feel bad if one of your ideas either doesn't land with everyone else or turns out to be a bad direction. It's like, you're not your ideas. You have to separate yourself from that. And that can be tricky because they represent you in a way.
Yeah.
But they aren't you.
They aren't. Yeah. And for me, at least, the more that I've written, the easier it is to separate myself from my ideas. My own like personhood is not all of my ideas, because like our brains are wild. We have so many thoughts every single day, and like you're going to have so many ideas, and like a fraction of them are going to be ideas that you actually end up wanting to polish and finish and use. So I think, after just making a lot of things and seeing that sometimes it's not great and it's fine and I'm still a human being, like there's no real huge consequences of coming up with something that you don't like. You might as well just let it flow, let that idea happen, and then not take it too seriously if you end up being like, no, I'm not sure about that. I have this one demo that I was working on, and I think I'm going to finish it, but I have to change some lyrics because there's this one moment where I say sparks in the sky, but it really sounds like I'm saying Spocks. And I'm like, okay, this idea, it's not landing. It sounds like I'm saying Spock. This is not a song about Star Trek. So I think that I've got to change it. And
get good numbers from the audience of Trekkies out there. So.
You never know. But I wouldn't be super popular with them because I don't really know anything about Star Trek. It's like,
they'd find you out fast.
Yeah.
She's
like,
not real.
Yeah, they're going to have some sort of like obscure reference. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Sorry. So I think that, just being able to have a sense of humor too, when you come up with things, you're like, yeah, no, that's not the vibe, but that's okay. And it's kind of fun. I don't know. It's kind of fun to have those things where you're like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work. It's part of it.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because sometimes it's a decent idea for another situation, and you can always save it. You can always maybe think about it later, or even just being cool with letting it go and not feeling as if every idea is somehow from some finite container that you're pulling from, and I better use this or else I'm going to be out soon. Because as soon as I started thinking that way, especially playing in a band where I have a cool guitar riff but no one wants me to play it, and instead of getting mad, you could either save it or just say like, well, I can come up with another cool one. There's more.
Yeah, totally.
There's no end to it really until I stop doing it.
100%. It's like infinite. You can always keep writing. Sometimes I feel like you have to write a concept like a few times, write the same song a few times before you like get to the one that you've been trying to get to. And so I've done that a bunch where I have like Frankenstein songs where it's like I wrote this one song and the verse, there's 2 lines in the verse that I really, really love, but I just couldn't really find a chorus that was making me feel what I wanted to feel. And then maybe 6 months later, I write another song and that chorus is really cool and makes me think, oh yeah, there was that song I wrote, a while ago that I didn't use, but I really liked that verse. And you can kind of put them together. I've done that a bunch. The Moment actually is a great example of that. I wrote that guitar riff in Sweden in a guitar shop when I was traveling with my friend Jacob. He's my collaborator for like 8 years now. We've worked together so much, and I love working with him. He's a great songwriter and producer. And so we were traveling, we were in Sweden. I wrote this guitar riff, and I don't know, I didn't have my guitar with me. So it was kind of like, you just remember it if you remember it, and then leave. And then when I got back, I remember writing a song for that riff. It was like not sold, but I really liked that riff. Like I really, really liked it, but I didn't necessarily feel like that was the right song for that riff. And this was in like 2017. So this has been a long time since that. And then maybe in 2019, I wrote another song for it. That still kind of wasn't it. But I still knew, I was like, I know I'm going to use this riff, but I just really want the song to be like matching it, because I really liked it. I thought, I just want the song to be as good as I know that I can make it. And I had this little, like, at that time I was kind of beginning my existential crisis. So I had this melody that I kept kind of singing to myself, kind of just like a self-soothing thing. Sometimes I do that, where I have a little like tune that's like helps me when I'm in a certain mood. And this one, I was having a lot of anxiety and worrying a lot about what my future was going to look like and what I was going to do. I was like very much the quarter life crisis moment of like transitioning into adulthood. And I kept kind of singing this little settle into the moment. It was like going in my head, and I would sing it to myself. And there was a day where I was like, I wonder if I sang that little melody that's just been for me to comfort myself, what happens if I combine that with this guitar riff that's like this homeless riff that I wrote 5 years ago? Or not 5 years ago at that point. Now it's been that like 5 years, but like 6 years. Yeah. So it took me like 5 years to write that song. Not actively, but because it was fragmented ideas that ultimately it took me 5 years to come up with all of the right components and put them together. And sometimes it's a longer process than you anticipate.
Yeah, that's a cool riff too. And I remember when you played that at the performance night at the songwriting retreat, and there were a couple people like, that's a cool guitar part, you know, when you started playing that, because it's got like some funny notes. It's in a unusual key, right? So it's got some, and I think you even do like a little bending on the strings in kind of weird places. It's cool that that stuck with you and like kind of stayed in your orbit. And meanwhile, this other thing was kind of there too. And one day they kind of aligned for you.
Yeah.
You just held on to it.
Yeah. It's weird how that happens. And thank you. Yeah. I like that riff. I kind of just...
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool guitar part. It's like one of those guitar parts like you want to learn. Like, oh, cool. I'm learn how to play that. And I love that as a guitar player. Like, it's always fun when you hear something that you want to figure it out. You want to like understand how it works, you know?
Well, totally. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with Weezer because I feel like they had a lot of little guitar parts like that. And so it's very...
Do you have a favorite record of theirs?
I really like the Blue album. I think that's probably my favorite record of theirs. I know it's like kind of hipster to say that, but it's true.
I love the first two.
Yeah, Pinkerton as well.
Yeah, I'd probably say Pinkerton, but the Blue album for me was, when I heard that, I was like, oh, this is the kind of music I like. I was like 14, you know, when that came out. And I was just learning guitar, and I was learning a lot of like normal stuff you learn on guitar. I was learning tons of Nirvana. I loved Nirvana at that time in my life. And I still do, but it, you know, it's very angsty, and it was great for that. And a lot of the guitar stuff I was learning was very metal-y and, you know, just cool riffs, Pantera, Metallica, stuff like that. That's just fun to play when you're on guitar. But when I heard Weezer and just heard those melodies, they were like nursery rhymes almost that I
Yeah.
like, but for a teenager, you know?
Yes,
And
totally.
I just like saw it at that point. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it was a pretty big moment, actually, that record. And
That's
then when
awesome.
Pinkerton came out, it was just like, wow, it goes even
Yeah.
deeper and further. And
Yeah. It's so true. Like the way that they're able to have such simple songs, simple melodies, and really like straightforward, like expository lyrics. It was just really inspiring for me as well as a teenager. I remember listening to Weezer and being like, oh, this is so cool. Like the Undone, the sweater song. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What, like, such a cool song. So weird. Like,
yeah.
and
I
Yeah.
saw a band, a high school band when I was in high school. They were the older kids. They were like the seniors, and they covered that at the talent show.
oh, that's awesome.
And I just started playing guitar, and I'm like, oh my God, like I can make a band, you know, like you get this,
Yes.
you start realizing this, and you're seeing like people I see in the hallways doing it, and they were playing that song. And I was just like, holy cow. Like
Yeah.
the whole, like the clouds parted and everything. It was
Yes.
such a cool, it was a cool moment.
Oh, that's so awesome. I definitely can relate. I had that same experience of being like, you can write songs, you can be in a band. And that was, I mean, Weezer is like one of the bands that made me want to play rock music, and kind of never went away. So shout out to Weezer.
Yeah. And you know, we were saying you don't know what your little ripples are in life.
Yeah.
Like those dudes that were in that band in high school, they have no
Yeah.
idea that I still think about that. You know,
That's so
it was
awesome.
just powerful. Like watching those kids just a few years older, you know?
Yeah. It's ignites a fire in you.
Yeah. Like I think I can do that.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, that was a very inspiring record. I loved it. And the guitar parts on it still, if you listen to it, they're super cool. Very melodic, simple, kind of, I don't know, they just don't like make things too complicated.
Yeah. And he can play. Rivers.
Yeah.
Like he was like a metal shredder
Yeah.
type of player. So he really just held back on that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, and that you can have that restraint to understand what the
Yes.
songs are supposed to do.
Yeah.
But they also had that thing too where they were like the anti-rock star kind of thing where they
Yeah.
weren't cool, you know, they were nerdy.
Yeah.
And like it kind of made you feel like, like
Yeah.
I'm not Slash, you know. I couldn't walk around in like that hat with curly hair and like
Yeah.
only wearing a leather vest. Like,
Totally.
like that just doesn't work. But like them, it was like more approachable. It was
Totally.
something you could kind of see yourself as.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved it. I was all about it. And I also loved Muse. That was like the other band that made me want to make music. I was so obsessed. And Paramore. I wanted to be Hayley Williams so badly.
Yeah.
So those were like probably the three bands that
Right.
inspired me
Yeah,
the
and they
most
have a
as
lot
a
of
teenager.
that melodic stuff going on. But I
Yeah.
guess the other two bring in some more electronic kind
Yeah.
of production stuff to the songs.
Definitely. I mean, Muse
Yeah.
is like such a weird band. If you listen to their like journey from making more like Radiohead-y kind of early Radiohead guitar rock to kind of, then they even had like dubstep at a certain point, which was
Oh,
so
really?
out of left field.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Yeah.
It's so strange, but super cool. And I was obsessed. But I think, you know, throughout all of my early years making music and kind of getting exposed to things that made me want to write songs, the common thread throughout all of it for sure is like melody. Having really beautiful melodic parts in the production, having really simple yet evocative vocal melodies, like that will always get me. And sometimes I listen back to songs that I loved as a teenager when I first started playing guitar and I first started writing songs. And I notice now, like, okay, yeah, this checks out, because these songs are using melodies that I would still hear this song and think, oh, wow, that melody's awesome. And, you know, back then I didn't really have the terminology to explain like why I liked it. It was just kind of like, it made me feel something. So I think that's definitely a common thread of something that matters a lot to me when I listen to music, but also when I make my own music, is having beautiful melodies, vocal melodies, but also I really love melodic production choices. And like, I'm super obsessed with the idea of like something that can be really simple, but can be really emotional. Like, that's always the goal. How do you make it simple and also feel like it makes me think about things or feel things, or like it just feels fresh or interesting, but also very simple. That's like extremely challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to find that. I often try to impress myself, you know, with like clever chord changes or something like that.
Yeah.
And then listen to like some of my favorite music. And most of it's really simple, maybe with a little twist here and there.
Yep.
It doesn't take much to take something simple to a new level. And it's always when I let go of that, when I stop trying and I just allow it. It's kind of like you said, like allow it to be bad, allow it to be silly, but also allow it to be simple.
Yep.
And then you can bring the complexity in. You can like change that to a major chord instead of a minor chord where it's supposed to be.
Totally.
And suddenly you've got something pretty complex.
Yeah.
Couple little tweaks of that simple idea.
Totally. Yeah, I'm obsessed with making things that technically on paper look kind of complicated, like weird key changes and using chords that are not in the key that technically should not work, but finding ways to do weird things, especially harmonically and with your chord progressions that are not, quote, correct, but that sound really cool. I feel like that to me is where things get really evocative, is when it surprises you in a way, but keeping it rooted in catchiness and something that can make us feel just stable too. I really like towing that line between like, is this too weird, or does it work and it's just surprising enough that it feels unique yet still accessible. So I love playing around with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I noticed that in your playing, especially watching you play. You know, when you hear the record, you can hear stuff's going on, but when I can see where your fingers are going on the guitar, it's much easier for me to tell. But you had a couple really cool things. There was one song that you played that I think I said to you, I wanted you to show me the chords, but we never got around to it.
Yeah.
It was just really, and the funny thing was though, like you went to these really kind of surprising chords as far as the key goes, but it felt like I kind of almost knew it was coming, even though I couldn't tell you what you were doing, just because it just fit so well too. It wasn't complexity for the sake of complexity. It also served the song really well, and it just took you through that emotion that you were going for in the song.
Well, I appreciate
cool
that.
stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I am glad to hear that that's how it comes across, because that's like, that's something that I definitely really like to play around with, is using things in a kind of a weird way that is not in the key, but making it feel like it flows naturally. Not like saying, hey, look at this weird thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go do something crazy. Like, how can you do something kind of weird without really drawing too much attention to it and just making it feel like it's, of course the song would go there. I really like playing with that. It's a lot of fun for me. And honestly, most of the time when that happens, it's not me being like, I'm going to go to the parallel Dorian.
Right.
Like, I'm usually not actively thinking about that stuff. Most of the time, it's just, let me put my hands on this instrument and not know what I'm going to do, and then use my ears to figure out what sounds cool. And sometimes it's in the key and sometimes it's not in the key. And then I kind of like those happy accidents of like, I didn't really try to make it that weird, but it ends up being kind of weird just because that's where it wanted to go.
Right. That's cool. I get that happening sometimes, especially when I play with the band, the 3-piece rock band I have. And because we always write together. Like nothing.
Nice.
I don't bring ideas. Nobody brings ideas to the band. We just play. And when something starts to happen, we're like, okay, we might have something. It's like you're fishing and like, oh, something's on the line. And you can kind of see the look in each other's eyes. And then you're just kind of putting your hand wherever it lands and whatever comes out of your mouth. And again, like having people that you can be safely doing that with, because I'm sure if there's plenty of musicians, and I know some of them that wouldn't tolerate this process. They'd be looking at me like, what are you doing? Like that's not cool. But having that environment where you can just go for it, like sometimes you just land on a cool spot, a cool note, or the wrong chord that's just right, and it's not so intellectual, it's just more you're just feeling it, and that's where it went. and reacting too, that's
totally
a lot of fun. That when you're doing it so fast, and I think we had this going a bit too, where we're just kind of reacting to what happens.
Yeah. And when you get like, if you're in that group setting, I'm sure that you get feedback, not necessarily even verbal feedback, but just like when somebody does something, then everyone's like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah. So, coming up with things in real time with other people, you kind of get that too, which when you're by yourself, you might be able to have those moments by yourself, but it's pretty cool when you can share that with other people.
Yeah, we're always in sort of like a circle when we play, facing each other, and lots of fun. I'm always like that. I'm always lots of eye contact when I'm playing, like because it's so loud too. You can't hear over anything, so you really have to exaggerate your body language and your facial expressions.
Yeah, totally.
All that.
Yeah, I loved hearing your songs that you guys wrote. Like, so clever, but like just made me smile. Like some of the lyrics were so honest and almost funny, but like not in a way that was like trying really hard to be funny, but just kind of like, this is so real and unpretentious in a really awesome way.
That's cool to hear. We have silliness in us, and that makes sense because when we get together, we're goofing around, we're having fun. And that's a huge part of my personality, is being silly and stupid half the time. I love it. I'm a weirdo. Like that's fun for me.
It is fun. Yeah, it's fun to listen to.
That's hard to get into sometimes by yourself, though. You kind of need like somebody to chuckle with on it sometimes. And that's something I love about playing with the friends I have right now that I'm playing with, that we kind of have that, and it's okay, and let it get in the music. Let it be a silly song. Like, who cares? Like, we can ride many different emotions, and I think that's when it's fun. Like you were saying earlier, like you're having fun, and fun can be on a serious song. I think the song we wrote with Matt was pretty serious on a level. I mean, the main chorus line was, "I should have loved you more," and it's kind of heart-wrenching.
It is heart-wrenching,
but it wasn't like we were sitting in the darkness, like with our like druid hoods or something. And being all serious about it. We were
No.
mostly having a really good time.
Yeah. Which I think is so healing, you know, to be able to write a song about something that all of us could relate to in our own ways. And it was a song about loss and like having regret. Like, oh my goodness, like that's a really tough thing to feel. And I think that if you can put that outside of yourself into a song and be able to enjoy the process of making that song and being able to bond with other people at the same time as kind of letting out this emotion that sometimes is really hard to like talk through. Like if you were to sit down with a bunch of strangers and have to like tell them that story, like read them those lyrics, but it be just you saying it, like that's kind of, it's really intense. But if you're able to kind of put it into music, I think it's really healing. And I've definitely benefited from moments like that, getting to write about things that are hard to talk about, but putting it into music is pretty healing.
Do you ever find that sometimes the things you write, when you step away from them and look at them, it's like, oh my God.
Yes.
Like someone's going to worry about me when they read this, right?
Yes,
but
definitely.
The actual, when you're putting it together, it's not like that usually.
Yeah.
Like I've written some lyrics and have some songs that when I look at them, it's like kind of dark, but
Oh yeah.
I wasn't like sitting in the dark, like with, you know, I don't know what candles and, you know, like summoning spirits or anything. It was just, it's like you kind of toy with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're pulling things out that kind of sound interesting, or sometimes they even just fit the melody well.
Yeah. I definitely have had moments like that. I think like for me, I definitely have gone through a lot with my mental health, and it's something that for a long time was really, really hard for me to talk about. What, like just going through things with anxiety and depression and just not really knowing how to handle it, especially as a teenager and a young person. And music was really like the main way that I was able to get through that. And so sometimes the lyrics would for sure be really dark. Like I think when you're dealing with depression, like the dark thoughts that come through are like pretty dark. So when you put them into lyrics, you know, it does kind of come across that way. But for me, it's always been like you write it down so that you can get it out of your head and onto a page. And I think that music is a really safe space to be vulnerable and to kind of even write down the things that are the things you would not want to say out loud, or the things that you know aren't really true, but you thought that anyway. I think it's a safe way to just let yourself express whatever it is that comes up. If it's positive, negative, really dark, or really bright and joyful, like we go through so many different emotions. And I think music is a really safe place to explore all of them. And one thing I've been really trying to let myself do is let the song be completely itself. Like not worry if I have conflicting ideas. It doesn't matter. Like this song is about this topic and this feeling and this version of me and this character. And it doesn't matter if I don't feel like that anymore, or if like I can see the other side of things, or if, you know, in real life it didn't actually go like that, or, you know, whatever the details in my real life. Humans are so nuanced. You're always going to have conflicting things that you care about, that you want to write songs about. But in one song, you can kind of just explore that one thing and let that one piece of it really come to the forefront, express it fully, explore it fully, even if that's really dark. You know, don't torture yourself, obviously, but like sometimes, you know, if you can let yourself just really explore that one kind of dark thing, then you can move on from it and focus on something else. Like I had a teacher tell me once to not let reality get in the way of the truth. And I really thought that was interesting as a songwriter think about, right? Like, it doesn't matter if the real story is different. Like, how can you tell the truest version of that emotion or that that facet of your life? Like, you can focus in on one thing at a time. And it's great to get to use music as a tool to explore all of the different parts of yourself.
I've heard that sentiment and like, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different, I guess. Because I know like when I'm teaching sometimes I'll often change things around for the impact and for the lesson of the story, you know, different details. Sometimes it's me and it really was about somebody else, but that's cool. The reality get in the way of the truth, because sometimes the reality isn't as real as what you're getting at. But I love what you're saying about like, let the song be what it is. And I think that's kind of what I'm thinking of too when I'm saying like, I look at some of the stuff and it's like, geez, Brian, like, you didn't have it that bad. What's the matter with you? But it's this idea of like, you jump into that character and you go in there fully and like, what is this thought? Where does this lead? And sometimes I find when I put all that down and look at it, you're kind of like, well, I'm not really like that. It's not that bad. And it's not really it. And you see that kind of like one-sidedness of the perspective. And I find it helps me a lot, where I might like, a large part of me might even feel that. But once I really go down that road and like really dive into that feeling on, you know, and this could be on any side of it too, positive or negative, but you kind of get like this understanding that that's not the whole story. And it's the trouble I have, I guess, when people try to look at things I've written and then look at me and try to like figure out where I'm at. And there's been a couple times already, like I almost brought it up, and this is like probably the third now that made me think of it. I'm listening to this podcast right now called Dissect.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I guess they dissect albums.
Cool.
And I'd had it in my, you know, thing to listen to for a while. I'm subscribed to it, but I hadn't ever listened to it. But then they started doing Radiohead's In Rainbows. Oh
my God, that's like, that might be my number one favorite album. It's at least in my top 3.
Of all albums ever, or Radiohead albums?
Well, honestly, ever. Like, I love that album so much. That's probably the album that I've listened to the most times.
Nice.
I love it.
I've got the like record, it's like a hardcover record set that came out when they released that. It's so cool. But this podcast is really nice because they're taking an episode on each song. It's like 45-minute dissection and talking about the lyrics. Yeah, you're gonna love it. But I'm wondering if there might be a part of you that gets a little frustrated too, because a lot of the lyrics that they start analyzing, he often starts saying, well, you know, Tom York's life was currently doing this. And there's a big part of me that's like, maybe that's working into it. But I also kind of I have that feeling I get when someone looks at my songs and like tries to like say, oh, you must be angry about this thing that's going on in you. And I'm wondering how much he's overreading into the lyrics.
Yeah. I guess we can never really know. I mean, I'd have to listen to it, but it's interesting.
And they don't come out and tell you, you know, Tom York's not like explaining this. There's a mystery to them that works, I think.
It does. I really feel like you can never fully know what a songwriter was thinking or feeling when they wrote that. But I think that the songs that are the most emotionally impactful lyrically are the ones that are not necessarily literally true about that person's life or telling the story of their breakup perfectly verbatim. Most of the time, it's the ones that just make you feel something or paint this cool image in your mind that you can connect with, or are just like embracing that character in that moment. And I feel like most of the time it's true on some level, even if it's not fully true. Like there is a part of the writer that can identify with that feeling. But I found that with writing for other people too, writing songs that I'm not going to sing, you can explore parts of yourself and your own writer's voice that have nothing to do with your true life at all, because it's for somebody else. Like I wouldn't write that song for me, but I can fully explore it, that part of me that can identify with this song, even though somebody else is gonna sing it. So I think even those ones that are fully not even about me or for me at all, like there is still a part of me that like has embodied that concept in that moment. So
and that's it exactly, like that. You're kind of exploring these things when you're writing about them, and I don't think it takes away from it in any way either. Like just because that wasn't exactly what happened to this person, I think it's an exploration, and it's interesting for what it is, that you can kind of go there and see what it's like for a little while.
Totally. And honestly, that album, like, it's the album that I've listened to most probably, but I could not recite you all of the lyrics on most of the songs because it's kind of abstract in a way. Yeah. And like, it almost is like the lyrics are there to aid in the vibe of the song. And I think that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot of the lyrics listening to the podcast because he's not super clear in his enunciation all the time. Yeah. And I think, that's part of the effect. Like you said, it's not meant to be this like, it's up for interpretation. Yeah. In a way. So but it's a cool podcast. I think if you like the album, you'll definitely get a kick out of it.
I got to check it out.
It's cool to hear some of the isolated parts. And the other thing that you were saying earlier is a lot of those ideas were floating around for years. There were songs that they maybe did live weird versions, or they had these riffs, and a couple of them didn't make the cut for like OK Computer, but they hung around. And it's cool to hear how they were able to finally like reel them in and turn them into something cool.
Yeah, that's super inspiring. I'm gonna have to listen for sure.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes too, so if anyone wants to look it up, because it's so inspiring. And I find that it almost doesn't even matter if I even like the song or the album, but when artists start breaking things down and you start dissecting it, you can always kind of find something that you can take and use and learn from. Totally.
That's been a huge thing for me with production over the last couple of years, is just learning from what other people do and trying it out. I learned a bit of production in college, and I had some classes where we talked about just how to use the software, the principles of what, elements go into things, like what is EQ, what is compression. So I was able to learn a lot of that stuff in a academic setting, but in terms of figuring out how I want to make my music sound or how to do things creatively, like no one can really teach you that other than like, I mean, I am a teacher, so I do think people can teach you certain tools and techniques for creativity for sure. But I do believe that like the best way to figure out what you want to do with your art is by just listening to a lot of other people's stuff and learning from what other people do, and then trying it yourself, and not necessarily doing the same thing that they do, but opening yourself up to other ideas that that you like. Like if you listen to this Radiohead podcast and think, oh man, I love that synth part, that's such a cool part, and then hearing them say, okay, well, here it is soloed and this is how we made it, you know, you can come up with your own thing by just exploring techniques that other people have used. And that has definitely made me realize a lot of the things that I like to do with my own production, just by kind of listening to a lot of other people.
Yeah, then get your hands dirty, see what you can come up with.
Well, you
a lot
definitely
of it's like an
have to do it.
approximation.
Yeah,
like you got to do it, and you don't always get there, but you get there in your way. You get your version of it.
You get your own thing. Like in terms of like referencing and reference tracks and that kind of thing, like I kind of like to listen to it like once and then say, okay, cool, that's the vibe that I want to play around with, and then not listen to it again. Because like if you listen to the references too much, then you start to parrot, right? And kind of mimic what other people do. And I think that's a great way to learn. But I also think that like if you want to make something that feels more you, then listen to it like once and then make your own thing with inspiration from the things that you love versus like copying things. But I do think that taking inspiration from other people is a lot different than copying. And I think copying is plagiarism, but being inspired and trying things out that you know other people have done that worked for them and putting your own spin on it, I think that is a really great way to grow.
Especially when you get so granular, right? Like when you're saying, oh, it's a synth part. Like, okay, so that's one little nugget of the song, right? So yeah, you can kind of go nuts trying to copy that, but it's not like you're trying to make the whole exact song again. You might be taking that from them and this from them and 17 other things.
Yep.
And then it's like your own little stew that you've made.
Yeah. I think the more different things you listen to, then the more unique your stew will be at the end of the day. So like listening to a bunch of different kinds of music has been really inspiring. I have like a song that I'm working on right now that has kind of like a drum and bass drum loop, which is super different from anything else I've ever done. But I was listening to a lot of electronic music and I was like, man, I really like this groove. I really like it's fast and it's like makes me want to like move my head back and forth really quick. I don't know. There's just something about that fast drum and bass kind of breakbeat that I really liked. But then I wanted to not make a drum and bass song. I was like, how can you like use something from this genre that's really far away, really different from what I normally would do, and then put an acoustic guitar on it and sing like a really soft kind of floaty melody. Then it turns into something that's not really drum and bass at all, but also, I don't know,
really
it's just
folky singer-songwriter either.
Yeah, either. So it's kind of like, it's really fun to play around with that.
Yeah. Oh, we're so lucky now, like with all the potential we have for this stuff, we can run wild with it.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
So listen, I know we're getting close to the end of our time. I think you got something coming up soon. But I want to make sure we get a chance to just tell people where to find you and where you like to send them. I know you're pretty active on Instagram. There's a lot of cool stuff going on now with some of your performances are starting to show up, which has been cool to see.
Thanks.
That would be just Instagram.com/Chloe, Chloe, Chloe _echo, right?
Yeah, there's 2 underscores. Double
it's 2
underscore.
Okay.
I know. Chloe.
Like an echo.
Yeah. Chloe _echo. That's my Instagram. You can check out chloeecho.com and on Spotify, Chloe Echo, on all of the listening platforms.
Apple,
you can find
it's all
Chloe
there.
Echo, Apple, all the good stuff. And
Yeah.
yes, I have been performing. It's been a lot of fun. And
What's the like ensemble you have together? Because there's so many directions you could probably go, I'm sure.
yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges actually of this new music that I'm working on, that is getting ready to be released over the next few months, it's a lot more produced and electronic influenced than some of my previous stuff. So I knew I was going to have some sort of Ableton setup happening on stage, which I've kind of shied away from for the last... I mean, I have done so much with just a band with 2 guitars, maybe a synth player, bass and drums. And I've done that like a lot. So I've been nervous to incorporate Ableton on stage, mainly because of the tech. Like, the technical difficulties stress me out. Like worrying, okay, well, what if it stops working? Like, what if halfway through the song, like my microphone isn't working anymore? Like, I just...
Yeah, but that happens to guitar amps and,
It does.
drumsticks and strings. And
It'll happen no matter what, really. But
it's a different fear, though. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I was nervous that the tech would not work on stage. And so I've always kind of felt like it's easier to just like play live instruments, which I think, is somewhat true, but not necessarily true either, because you have to learn instruments that way. So that's hard also. But now I have decided, you know what, no, like I really want to incorporate Ableton on stage. I've been producing a lot more with these new songs, and I want to be able to like share some of that in a performance as well, like be able to have some of the cool production choices, like swells and synth parts that would be hard to do live. Like I wanted those to be able to be a part of the performance as well. So I have my push where I'm triggering some like sections of tracks, and then also I'm doing some vocoder stuff with vocal synth, and playing the chords on the push. And I have one song in particular that has a lot of kind of quirky sound effects in the production. So I have that on a drum rack and playing the sound effects when they come in. And it's been really fun to get to play around with it. It's really cool. And then there's a guitar, bass, and drums. So I have live drums, a bass player, a guitarist, and then me with, sometimes I'm playing guitar and then sometimes I'm using the push, and it's been really fun.
Well, it sounds like you have enough going on where if your computer decides to blow up,
Yeah,
you still got other stuff playing, right? Where
exactly.
the song can continue.
Yeah, well,
So
that
that's
happened.
a nice safety net.
It did happen. Well, my computer didn't blow up, but I did have a show where the tech wasn't working. We weren't able to use the push and the tracks, and my worst fears came true, and it was fine. So
Nice.
now I'm a lot
There you
less nervous about it because...
Yeah, you're empowered now.
Yeah, I'm like,
Right.
well, even if everything fails on my computer, I don't even know. It was probably just a situation where resetting my computer would have fixed it, because it wasn't... I was like, why is this happening right now? Sometimes, off and on, is the
There's
only
all kinds of things.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I had one time where I had all automation that turned the volume down, and I left it in the session. I couldn't figure it out. Like last second figured it out, but
yeah,
you just, things come up.
exactly. So that happened on stage, and my band was able to come through, and we played without the tracks, and it was great. It was a really fun show, and it proved to me that like even if technical difficulties happen, like worst case scenario, it doesn't even like play, then you can still, you know, have a good show. So now I'm a lot more chill. I'm like, whatever. I'm going to bring it up there. I'll play around with it. If it works, it works.
Nice.
And hopefully it will work next time. And I'm sure it will.
It's a great place to be.
Yeah. Having a lot of fun. That's
cool,
the most
Chloe.
Important thing.
This was great. It's so great to catch up with you again.
Yes.
We'll
It's been
send
so
people
great
to your
see you.
sites and stuff. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for listening. And take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you want to help support the show, the best thing you can do is tell a friend, someone you think that would enjoy the show. I'd also love it if you could leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support my work, you can go to brianfunk.com. I've got tons of Ableton Live packs, tutorials, samples. You can check out my book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, which gives you 365 short music-making activities to help you get started, stay inspired, and finish more music. And there's also the Music Production Club, where you get my latest releases as soon as they're finished. It gives you access to a community of like-minded people who are making music and sharing ideas. You can share your music, find new collaborators, and participate in our live meetings where we set up some kind of musical challenge and then make music together and share our results at the end. That's the Music Production Club. It's a lot of fun, and you can find that and everything that I do at brianfunk.com. Thanks again for listening to the show, and have a great day.